You know what's frustrating? Wozniak, one of the founders of Apple, I think he's worth $8 billion last time I checked, invented so many things we use today, came out last week in a speech and said, AI is being designed to end humans' usefulness. The architecture is being set up, basically echoing what I've said and others have said, to where we're building a world that's not for people. And of course, that's what Bill Joyce said 16 years ago in Why the Future Doesn't Need Us in Wired Magazine, himself a billionaire, one of the owners of Sun Microsystems, co-chairman. What we're talking about is a predatory system, and Joel Scalzo has agreed to stay with us 20, 30 minutes, as long as he can, into the next hour to take your phone calls on any specific questions for him, or if you agree or disagree, specifically for Joel Scalzo. He'll be with us 20, 30 minutes in the next hour. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. Specifically for him, first-time callers. 800-259-9231. But Joel, pulling back from this, the more I research it, the more I see how it operates, you really come face to face with the fact, in their own writings, they admit they're into the occult. These are people that believe they serve the God of this world, who, if they carry out these plans, will be given eternal life through the machines. They will escape judgment. You and I have talked about this before, but folks need to understand, this isn't us saying this. This is what we get out of Skull and Bones and Bohemian Grove. This is what Ray Kurzweil and all these guys are saying. They're now externalizing the hierarchy. They're now selling this to the general public. Accept giving up your humanity. Turn yourself over to the robots making the decisions, and you will be allowed to live forever. How would anyone believe these people? I mean, it's just so fantastical. It's out of this world. It is satanic. Can you speak to that?
Well, what drives the globalist is that, everybody has a conscience. Everybody is part of humanity. You get information from a divine source criticizing you, prompting you to do the right thing, and people who are bad, who want to do the thing, that are in constant rebellion against conscience. And there's another voice comes through that center of the mind that perceives spiritual information from Satan, temptations, trying to get you to do things, countering what the Lord wants you to do. Oh, you don't want to do that. You're too tired, or you want to do this. Ultimately, the people who migrate towards the dark side end up with a real problem, is that they inwardly still know there's going to be a judgment day someday. And what the oil that makes the conspiracy work is the promise of immunity. We see it on earth. They promise them immunity from prosecution. You look at the people who get off scot-free, this IRS director who Congress isn't going to prosecute for contempt. She should be. Why does that happen? Why do some people get off? Because they're part of the system. They've got immunity. Bill Clinton obviously had immunity that got him off. And it's not just the Democrats that get him off. It's the Republicans that buy into this too. But ultimately, I think, and this is my own theory, Alex, that there's a larger promise of immunity to probably only at the higher revelatory states, to the top levels of globalism, who probably do have their own revelation or seance with this, with Satan or God of this world. They're promised immunity from God's judgment if he helps them overthrow what is good in life. And they need immunity from God's judgment. I mean, they got a mountain of sins. They're facing the chains of hell. They try not to believe it, but it's there.
They feel it. They know it's true, and they understand. They're scared. Back in 60 seconds, I want you to continue getting into this. It's the big secret they don't want you to know about, folks. Third hour, call your friends and family. Tell them to tune in now. Email everybody. Get folks to tune in now. They need to hear this, folks. This is a short 5-minute segment. I want to come back, take calls, get to other news I haven't covered yet. The whole program is accelerating. It's gone from them denying this planetary plan to admitting it's a planetary takeover, and that it's even authoritarian, as the Financial Times of London did a few years ago, but saying it's a good totalitarianism, while separately attacking us for saying it's not a good plan. Joel Scalzo, this is a short segment. I want to give you the floor to finish up getting into free will, why they're attacking it. They claim they're here to empower people. The truth is they're openly here to enslave people and ultimately end humanity as we know it. And you were getting into this attack on free will, and then at the highest level of the pyramid, the Satan wants to play God because he wants to escape judgment as well, not just his minions.
Well, you know, you talk about empowerment, the promise of empowerment. There's a lot of subtle uh, enticements that this satanic conspiracy operates. You know, very few at the top level, um, except the top level, I think, have a revelatory relationship with Satan. You know, there's this generational effect in this conspiracy. It goes on generation after generation. No single person could design a system of conflict so complex that would exceed his lifetime 3 times and plan that and see that it's carried forth. It has to be revelatory in nature. But most of the people at the second and third and fourth level down from the hierarchy, they use all kinds of inducements, climbing the ladder, wine, women, song, the promise of immunity, other things to keep people. They even hire mostly just predictable people that they don't have to tell there's a conspiracy operating. They will do the liberal agenda because they've shown that proclivity. But for the general public, they promise empowerment. But what that really means is empowerment through government power, through linking yourself with government. That's how they lure in these corporations. We give you first contracts and think we'll make you wealthy. In fact, you cannot hardly compete nowadays in a tough economy without government contracts and these insider relations. So it's empowerment through government. The free market runs on the empowerment through good judgment, through the proper use of self-control, through listening to conscience, rather than a rule-making approach. It's a very fluid thing. And the serious thing about this conscience that I've been talking about is that these meds, that mood-altering drugs, actually, I have found, deaden the center of the mind, which receives divine inspiration. It deadens it. And that's why there's such a very interesting relationship between these mood-altering drugs and the withdrawal from them that allows Satan to come in and have near total compulsion there to drive people to suicide and do other evil things, such as been happening. But going back to what I was saying about the immunity pact that makes this drive, at the highest levels, there's this promise of making you safe from the judgments of God. And that's very attractive to a lot of people who have a lot of sins. And, you know, there's a vision that Isaiah had about this in Isaiah chapter 14, where he talks about seeing all of the great and powerful in prison, in the chains of hell. And that kind of gives you an indication that the great and powerful of the world get that way because of this pact with Satan, the Faustian pact, if you will. And then they see Satan descend, or he that was going to thrash the world with the power of his hand, descend into hell in chains, and they realize the jig is up. He's not going to be able to save them. And they utter, "Art thou become low like unto us?" I think that's a type and a parable of indicating that of this pact that's been going on since the beginning of the time. Work with me and I'll promise to dethrone God. You won't suffer the chains of hell. Then they see him eventually descend into hell and they realize it didn't work.
They are so deceived, though, in my gut, in my spirit, but historically as well. You can see the fall of tyrants always comes. You can see that the elite are following Lucifer. Don't they know he will fall?
They don't. It works. What I'm just saying, he lures in a lot of people. And
yeah, but I can see being lured by sin. I mean, we're all sinners, but I know it's bad. I know it loses. I guess they've been given over to great delusion. Powerful interview with Joel Skousen. More straight ahead. Wow. And that's what these big evil wars are about. Blood sacrifice to the God of this world. You know, Satan has already fallen. But he'll have another fall and not be in control of this planet anymore. And look, I have a personal relationship with Christ. I know this stuff's true. I infiltrated Bohemian Grove, the only person to ever get in and out and not get arrested. I'm not bragging. That was God's hand in that. I was questioned by the Secret Service and by sheriff's deputies. Didn't even lie to them. I just said, I'm here visiting the Hillbillies. That's the Bush's club. They said, are you a member? And I would say, no, I'm visiting. And I did go visit their camp. They weren't there. They were off getting drunk. And you could laugh at the ritual there in 2000, 16 years ago. It's in my film Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove. And during the ritual, with over 1,000 worldly, powerful billionaires and others, movie stars, you name it, watching them do the Moloch ritual, people say Moloch is, a bull, not an owl. This is all interchangeable. It really is a bull if you look at it. It's a horned owl / bull. They burn a child in effigy to it. Those men were in religious ecstasy. I grew up a Southern Baptist / evangelical / Methodist. We would go to all those churches because my grandmother on my dad's side was a Methodist. His dad was a Baptist. My mom's family was Southern Baptist. So we also had evangelical churches we went to. I haven't seen ecstasy people in religious rapture like I did at Bohemian Grove. And I, with Mike Hansen, who was there with me, simply said, my sidekick at the time, Mike now does a great job in private business. Got to have him on as a guest sometime, but he's so humble. He's seen it all. I said, this is very interesting. And those men looked at me like they wanted to tear my head off. They were there just like the ancient Jews in a good way, but this was a bad way, wanted to go to the temple and have the priest go beyond the veil to relieve them of their sins, to have the blood pass over them so that the judgment, the angel of death, wouldn't get them. That was what I was seeing. And they even talked about Faust. It was a mix of Faust, Canaanite, Babylonian, Druidic magic, Men in Power is a political retrospective written by the former German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt. He says, we have our own groves we do rituals in. I have blow-ups of the book in the film. The book's back there on the bookshelf. In fact, guys, I think it's back on that bookshelf in there in that room, in that studio. And he says, but I love the rituals at Bohemian Grove, and more gets done with the Trilateral Commission and CFR there. And then they admit in mainstream news it's giant gay orgies, homosexual orgies. And so you need to understand it's all about rebellion against the order of things. And it leads to destruction. And I'm not here at some level of hating gay people. It's that historically, whether it's Sodom and Gomorrah or the fall of Rome or now, that is pushed at the center of it. Joel Skousen, final comments on this deal with the devil, then I want to go to some phone calls.
Well, it works by the lure of immunity. At the top, the immunity against the chains of hell, and at the lower levels, immunity against earthly sins by controlling judges in Congress and other aspects of law enforcement.
As above, so below.
That's right. At various forms of control, and that's very important to have the control of the judiciary. So this system is not going away. At best, what we can do, I think, is to try to build a resistance movement, and that's why, even though I don't believe that we're powerful enough to stop them, I think that we have to educate as many people to build the remnant which God will inspire to resist. And ultimately, I think the second coming comes to stop the satanic control and to take it down. And then they will know that the promises of immunity do not hold, and that they will, in fact, experience the chains of hell. But really, it does drive them tremendously to have this promise of immunity. It's very, very effective. You're seeing it all through history, and we're watching it at this very time.
God is a just God and gives us all these blessings, our wonderful consciousness, our free will. Everything good flows out of God that created reality. Anyone who has their head screwed on halfway straight feels it, knows it, sees it. And I've had experiences that are private I won't even get into on air. It's real, folks. The enemy knows that. How could these people not know that Lucifer is the counterfeit? They believe Christ is the counterfeit. How do they not, in their very soul, know it as prima facie, Joel?
It doesn't matter if they know it or not. I mean, Satan knows what's real. He still fights against it. And that's the point. When you get a history, a backlog of sin, and one of the point I wanted to make, the reason why the gay agenda is so important to this globalist agenda is because part of the lure is to have dirt on people, to control them, to tell them, look, we've got this and this, so you're going to do what we ask you to do, or we will reveal these things. And then they get deeper into it. Once you get deep enough into it, in these kinds of sins, and they love blackmailable sins. Homosexuality used to be the ultimate blackmailable sin. It isn't as much today, but it still is significant. And they use that to cause people to say, look, this is your best choice out. It doesn't matter if you know that hell is coming. They're promising them immunity from that. And that's an illusory hope that, in fact, lures a lot of people in. It does work.
So they just do it out of fear.
Yeah, fear of the two bad choices, admitting and what I'm doing is wrong and taking the consequences, or the promise, the illusory promise that somehow someone's going to give me immunity, and there I can keep going in the same direction I can do and get rewarded along the way with wine, women, and so on.
Well, there is a thrill in sin at a certain level, but then it always gets really scary down that road. I just, again, I'm not up here on some high horse saying, well, like, the fake church up there acting foolish and attacking everybody, which actually drives folks away. But clearly, aborting our children, this whole anti-human agenda, we can see where it leads. It's just, it's hellish. And it seems to me hell is almost of its own making. I know God judges us, but at the same time, to me, hell is just a place where all the bad spirits who resonate towards that go, and that's what makes it hell, is that the parasites, the vampires, don't have a God's creation to feed on. It's almost like a phantom zone that they're being sent to. I mean, what is your idea of hell from a biblical perspective?
Well, I think that there really is extreme suffering in hell. And, the reason is, it's like you didn't learn the lessons of earth through listening to conscience. And so you're going to get the extreme pain of consequences all poured onto your mind, and it tends to purge out of people. In God's own mercy, it tends to purge any desire to do those things again because they remember the pain. And that's what I think hell does from a godly standpoint, is help the people purge those evil desires because they experience the full pain. And remember, the entire concept of satanic-driven government is to exclude people from the pain of their consequences so that they aren't judged, so that they get immunity from things. You can see that God needs to give consequences and pain that we might learn, if only at the end of this world, through the chains of hell.
It's pretty heavy stuff, and whether folks believe in God and the devil or not, as a group consciousness, it is manifesting, and the world elite do follow Luciferianism. And then their minions are Satanists. It's hardcore. Introducing Secret 12, the new InfoWars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.